we're just a couple days away from this. Mike Tyson will step up into the ring. He has a fight scheduled at age 58. Tyson, the last time he did fight was during the pandemic, November 2020. There was a Fugazi exhibition fight against Roy Jones Jr. during the COVID pandemic. So Tyson's last real fight was almost 20 years ago in 2005. Way back then, I was barely alive. He was pathetic in that performance, looked like a washed-up boxer, and that was his last fight for a while as he was knocked out, the great Mike Tyson knocked out. Now, his new battle royale is against the very annoying YouTuber Jake Paul, and that is going to take place at the Cowboys Stadium. Hopefully the sun will not be a problem. It's at night. It will be broadcast on Netflix. This is not a pay-per-view fight. It's going to be on Netflix. It is the inaugural maiden voyage. It was supposed to happen months ago, but Tyson had a medical problem and could not fight. Now, did you hear what Mike Tyson said about this? And maybe not. Mike Tyson hyped up his upcoming bout. He did a little chit-chat with the good people over there at the TMZ, and Tyson said it's the biggest fight in the history of life. Wow. Think about that. What about back in the Roman days? There was probably a bout somewhere. I would say the biggest fight is David versus Goliath, but what do I know? He says there's never been a fight this big, Tyson said. Now, when asked for what round the fight will end, Tyson answered, I'm not a psychic, but he will be sleeping, he said, of his combatant, Jake Paul. Well, that is true, Mike. Most people go to bed at night. We don't, but he will likely go to bed after the fight, one way or another. So let us discuss the question. Mike Tyson, choo-choo! The hype train says that the Jake Paul boxing match on Friday night, the biggest fight in the history of life. How does that sound to you? So I've got Big Top, infomercial, and basement, and we're going to bob and weave is what we're going to do. Bob and weave, and we're going to deliver the knockout blow. So first of all, Iron Mike acting like a fish. Now, what kind of fish? That would be a puffer fish. He's 58 years old. He's fighting an amateur, a loser, a 31-year age gap. This is more of a freak show than anything else. It just is. And Tyson learned from some of the greats in his day. Even though Don King supposedly ripped him off and took a bunch of money from Tyson. You think of that era when Tyson was fighting. He had Don King and Bob Arum, two of the great promoters of all time. But calling this fight the biggest fight in the history of life from a pure boxing standpoint is Big Top P.T. Barnum-like content, right? The famous words of P.T. Barnum, without promotion, something terrible happens. Nothing. So it's all about the promotion. And Tyson is doing his part. He's smoking, the freak show joint at this point, and he's all about it, right? Now, secondly, speaking of that, there are hardo people in the boxing world that are upset. There's a promoter. You probably don't know who this person is unless you're a hardo boxing fan. The name is Eddie Hearn. That sounds like a boxing person, does it not? Eddie Hearn. Like when you're born with the name Eddie Hearn, you have to go into boxing. It's kind of the deal there. You got to go into boxing. Anyway, get to the point, please. So Eddie Hearn is a boxing promoter. He's been around the fight game for a while. He blasted the Tyson-Jake Paul fight on Friday, calling it disrespectful, he said, to boxing. Is that fair or not fair? So I have it on my scorecard. I scored it hyperbole. Now, I agree with the take that it's not good boxing, right? I don't disrespectful. I wouldn't use the D word. I would not. And the reason I would not is I think some of this is Eddie Hearn is just upset he's not in on it in terms of getting a higher percentage of the money or whatever. So this is a golden goose that Netflix has decided they want to get into sports and they want to be part of this. But it's on brand for boxing, so it can't be disrespectful. Some of the rules are fugazi. That Tyson and Jake Paul will wear 14-ounce gloves. Normally, in a traditional fight, you'd have heavyweight fight, you'd have 10-ounce gloves. So it's a lot bigger. They're scheduled for 8 2-minute rounds, shorter than the typical 3-minute rounds in your traditional match. So shorter rounds, bigger gloves. The noble art, the reason it's not disrespectful is because the noble art has long been infested with infomercial masterpieces, if you will. It's a sham wow is what I call a lot of boxing. And they sell you, like the sham wow guy would sell you those cloths that are extremely absorbent and can be used over and over again to soak up all the gobbledygook. But it is a sham. Remember Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor back in the day? They fought. That was a sham. You go all the way back, 1970s, Muhammad Ali fought Antonio Inoki, who was a professional wrestler in Japan. They had a big event there in the 70s. There was an actor, you probably don't know who this is anymore because he's been gone for a while, Mickey Rourke, who took up boxing because he liked it, and he had a couple of fights. He fought some tomato cans in Japan, Mickey Rourke, and he retired undefeated. Many people, I remember at the time, thought it was because he just paid to make sure he won the fights. Then you had a former NFL player, Ed Too Tall Jones, who had also 6 professional fights. He won all 6 of them, Ed Too Tall Jones, and then came back to the Cowboys and played for them in the 70s and the 80s. And you had even Jose Canseco. If you're old enough to remember, he got into the ring, celebrity boxing, and got knocked out by some pencil neck nerd, knocked him out. Some skinny guy knocked him out. So now you have Mike Tyson, who is in his 50s, 31-year age gap, and he is fighting this YouTuber. I'm in. I'll be watching. Now that I know when the fight is, I will be watching. I don't know about you. I have the Netflix. I don't really use the Netflix. My wife watches it, but we have it, so I'm going to watch it. Now, final thought. Is it true that in one respect, the Mike Tyson fight is a throwback to the 1970s of boxing? And I am shaking my head. Actually, I'm nodding my head. Yes. Not shaking my head. I'm nodding my head, yes. So boxing, on this one, they're leaving their mother's basement and they're going out in the wild blue yonder. Okay, let me explain. So my entire life, since I was a little kid, I remember when I was a little kid, boxing was on regular TV, but not for long. And I'm getting old, right? And so boxing has been marginalized. It's a sport that's been marginalized because of pay-per-view. It's a blessing and a curse, right? It's a blessing because you get the money. People pay to watch the fight. It's a curse because you limit. It's like we talk about here, and my old pal Eddie used to get annoyed with because I'd say it's broadcasting. It's not narrowcasting. When you do a pay-per-view, it's narrowcasting. You've narrowed the audience, right? Because most people aren't going to pay for your fight. So therefore, less people have access to your product. You're limiting the amount of people that can get into your store. You're putting a lock on the door. It's a speakeasy when it's a pay-per-view. Now, to give you some perspective, the last big fight, and I say big fight, that was on regular television was Muhammad Ali and Leon Spinks. It was a rematch. I looked it up in 1978. So this goes back to 1978. It was watched on ABC by how many people? What do you think? A, 10 million people. B, 20 million people. Or C, 90 million people. What do you think? Got your answer? All right, pens down. That is correct. 90 million men, women, and children watched Muhammad Ali and Leon Spinks, and Ali won that fight in 1978. They estimate that almost 50% of the United States watched, U.S. televisions watched that fight. I think the number was 47% that they watched that Muhammad Ali fight. That is insane. That is 90 million. Now, the world's changed a lot. I don't know if you know about that. Since 1978. It's a much different world, but still 90 million people. Now, I bring this up because nowadays I am told by those that pay close attention, a big fight, a big pay-per-view fight, if you clear 900,000 viewers to watch a boxing match, that is considered tremendous, that you've done an amazing job. 900,000. That record is going to be slashed. In fact, it is more likely than not, with no pay-per-view, that a Fugazi Mike Tyson fight against a YouTuber with a 30-plus year age gap will be the most watched fight that we have seen in our lives, and most likely ever. Now, that is not hyperbole. Let me explain. So anyone that has Netflix has access to watch the fight. So I've done some Maller math, which is not accurate math. It's Maller math. But if my math is correct, so Netflix has almost 283 million paid subscribers. They're available in over 190 countries. Unfortunately for our friends in North Korea, you're screwed. And probably Afghanistan. But for the rest of you, you're in good shape. So 283 million, 193 countries. Now, assuming that you share passwords, and some people do, and I think Netflix, they've tried to crack down on that a bit, but it is available in a projected 600 million homes worldwide. Now, let me repeat that for those of you that are trying to sleep and you're listening and you're wondering why are you listening to the radio. So the number, I'm not even going to use the 600 million homes because I'll just use the lower number. The lower number is 283 million paid subscribers. So of that, again, they said there would be no math, but of that, if they get 31.8% of the people that have Netflix to watch the Tyson fight, either live or later on, that is 90 million men, women, and children around the world. Now, we can futz around with the numbers if you want, and I love futzing around with the numbers. So let's do the old percentage game. Let's use that big number, and that big number is 600 million. Now, that's a round number, right? So when you do round numbers, it's easier to do the math, even Maller math. So let's say of the 600 million, they get, what do you think, 25%? Would that be a great number? How about 20%? We'll just do, how about this, 18%? All right, 18% of 600 million. And that is a whole lot. That is what is that? Let me do the math. I screwed up the math. They said there would be no math. That's a lot. That's a lot. Because 20, if you do 20 of 600, that's like 330 something, 300 million something. It's a lot.